What's going on, everybody? It's your boy J Main, back checking in with the people, back with my first TV show review episode recap. I don't even know how to categorize this. This is my first time ever like breaking down an episode for a new TV series, and I guess why not it be The Last of Us? They start the show off basically with the doctors on a TV show set, and they're talking about like different types of viruses and how viruses can spread from humans and infect a whole, causing a whole pandemic. Because I remember this being a conversation prior to the show even coming out about the virus in this game, that the way it spreads and the way it infects people. And they talked about how it's going to deviate from what they did in the game, and I that raised a little red flag for me, because I liked the idea of how it spread in the game, and I thought they could have got away with it in the show, but they felt that it would be more realistic to go the route that they're going, which I will break down in a little bit. But they felt that it would be more realistic to go that route than it is the way it is in the game. You hear these doctors talking about different types of viruses, and then they get into like fungus and how they talk about fungus being in insects. They specifically an ant they talked about, and how it would spread throughout the ant and then eventually use the ant's flesh to help feed itself so that it can survive and ultimately mutate, take over the ant's brain. Now it's in control, and then from there the fungus then it evolves to the point where now it's seeking out other hosts or other ways to spread itself, almost like a network. And that's what the whole tendril thing is, that I think they're like getting the basis of it from this doctor explaining it. And then the other doctor there on the set brings up like a point that this type of fungus can't survive in humans because our bodies, the temperature of our bodies, it wouldn't be enough for the fungus to spread. And so the doctor then says, well, what would happen if the earth heats up, basically alluding to global warming. Intro credits come in after that. So now you're like, okay, I see where they're taking the spread of the virus and how it's going to affect people in this show. They open up the show with it being the year 2003, which is a 10-year difference from when the game actually starts in the game. The year is 2013. We're in 2003. They're in Texas, and Joel and Sarah, who are the two main characters of this story right now. Joel being the big main character of the game. They wake up late. Sarah has to go to school. Joel is getting ready to go to work, and today is Joel's birthday. So Sarah's cooking up breakfast in the kitchen. Making them a birthday breakfast. They're chatting or whatever. They sit down at the table. They're eating, and in comes Tommy, another important character in the show. Tommy, of course, is Joel's brother, and he's an important character to this game as well as the second game. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out, with Tommy's character throughout this game, and how much we learn about him as a character and even his backstory. And right away, Tommy, the character that plays Tommy is spot on in terms of the voice. Like, you hear that, like, it's like he studied. Like, I know they talked about a lot of the actors not playing the games. Like, you could tell he played, like he played the game, because his voice is perfect for Tommy. Like Joel, Pedro Pascal playing Joel, he has his moments. But Tommy's character, he's like Tommy 24/7. He might not look like Tommy, but his voice is perfect. His voice is perfect. So they're just chopping it up about a job that they're taking on. Joel talks about coming home late tonight because they're going to be working like a double shift. And Sarah gets upset because it's his birthday. And she's like, how are you going to come home late on your birthday? Like, what I'm saying? We're supposed to be celebrating you, and you're going to be out working late. Typical, typical dad stuff, out working late to get the job done, and the daughter being upset. And so he's like, you know what? I promise I'll bring back something special. I'll bring back a cake. We can celebrate and, go about our night. So he's like, all right, let's get ready. Let's go to school. And she goes upstairs to get her bag, but also what she does is she goes in Joel's room and she grabs his watch as well as some money out of his drawer. Now, this is important because his watch is broken. It's broken in the game and it's broken in the show. But we never learn how she really got the money to fix his watch, which she ultimately does for a birthday gift. That's her plan for it. So right here in the show, they give more context. We learn that she actually gets the money from him. She gets the money from Joel to fix the watch for his birthday. So, Sarah takes the watch, takes some money, and they go on about their way outside to get in the car. And at this point, they're having some conversations with the neighbors. And in this version of the show, it's the Adlers, and we don't get to meet them in the game. So I thought it was pretty cool that you actually get to see them have conversations with the neighbors. You can tell by the dialogue that they kind of look at the neighbors as a little bit annoying. Like the neighbor was like offering them some biscuits, and they both like trying to pass it off to each other, like, "Oh, don't you love biscuits?" Like, and then Joel's all like, "Nah, like I think we're busy. We got something to do. We gotta go." But the neighbor was talking to Ellie about her coming over after school because the neighbor's wife likes to hang out with Ellie. So there's the neighbor's wife, there's the neighbor's like a grandma, and then there's the papa neighbor. I'm gonna call them papa neighbor, mama neighbor, and grandma neighbor. Next scene, you get Sarah in class. Now, this part, not much really happens if you kind of just glancing at it at first thought, but I watched this episode twice. And what I noticed the second time watching is that Sarah kind of gets distracted by one of her classmates has like a bracelet on, and the bracelet is causing like a light to shine from it, and it's like, in Sarah's like line of sight. And what she notices is like the light is moving back and forth, and when she looks over at her classmate, you see her classmate like twitching a little bit. And I think that's going to be important for when I start talking about something a little bit later. But the classmate starts twitching, and then you hear like a cough, and then the scene changes. Now, she's on her way after school. She's taking a bus, and she's on her way to get Joel's watch fixed. She goes into the watch shop. She's talking to the guy. There's like police cars and a SWAT team, fire trucks just driving by. And he's like, "Yo, that's been happening like all day. Like, I don't know what's going on, but that's been happening all day. And, something's got to be going down in the city or whatever." So they're talking about how to get the watch fixed. And he tells her it's $20 to get the watch fixed. So he's like, "Yeah, I can fix that up for you right now. I'll have it done for you, and then you can take it and be on your way." So out of nowhere, the watch shop owner's wife comes out the back room, and she's like, "We got to close the store immediately. Like right now, close everything up. You got to leave." And he's like, "What are you talking about? It's only 3:00. We don't close till 7. She's like, "No, we got to close now. Give her back the watch. I don't care if it's pretty much finished or not." And he's like, "I'm finished with it. She can have it now." And then she tells Sarah, like, "Get home safe," and starts closing up the store. And don't even say nothing. Like, she don't say what's going on, no nothing. Just starts closing up the store, flips the sign over, and pretty much kicks her out with the watch. So that was like, what the hell? You got the police cars going up and down the street. You got, the watch shop's wife acting frantic, kicking people out the shop, closing it down early. Like, what is happening? So Sarah has this confused look on her face. She eventually they change the scene over to when she's home. Now she goes home, but she's like also going over to see the Adlers. So she's outside of her house, but she's walking in to see the Adlers. Sarah kind of just goes browsing around the house, and she goes and looks at a DVD case, like DVD shelf. And on the shelf, she picks out a movie and asks, the Mama Adler, if she can borrow it. And what happens at the moment when Sarah's picking out a DVD off the shelf, in the background, it's kind of like blurred out with like the depth of field, but in the background, you see the grandmother like twitching and shit in the back. I'm like, yo, am I bugging? Like, I thought she was like having a seizure because like her mouth is wide open, she twitching in the back, And, Sarah's not paying attention because she's looking at the DVD shelf. But in the background, we can see the grandmother like twitching in the back, her head rolling back, eyes going crazy. We like, yo, what the hell is happening? And then like Sarah walks off into the kitchen and begins talking again with Mama Adler. And as if like nothing happened. As if nothing happened. So, they baking cookies. They talking. Sarah asks if she can borrow the DVD. And, Sarah then says, it's getting late. I'm not even going to stay for the cookies. She probably didn't want to be there to begin with, but she's like, I'm not going to stay for the cookies. I'm going to head back. Joel will be home soon. It's his birthday, so she didn't want to, not be there when he got home. And so she starts to walk out of the Adler house, and, the grandmother's like back to normal. Well, as normal as she was. Grandma's back to normal, but the dog is looking at the grandmother. You know how dogs, when they get that like suspicious look, their head turn like that? So the dog is like, his head is turned. He's looking at the grandmother like, don't think I didn't see that. He's like, don't think I didn't see that. You was just over here tripping. I don't know what the hell was going on, but you was over here tripping. And so Sarah leaves the house. She's looking at the dog like, the hell is wrong with the dog? But the dog knows something's up. So Sarah then ends up leaving. And we get to Joel being coming back home. It's night now, so he's getting off work. Joel comes home and, they're sitting on the couch and, they're going over some things. And so far, like all of this stuff that has happened already that I just broke down, like none of this was in the game. So this is all like brand new territory. We're starting off and you're learning more about Sarah. You're learning more about like Sarah and Joel's relationship. Tommy's in the picture. You get to meet the Adlers. You get to see how she got the watch fixed. You get to, see her in school and stuff like that. You get to hear about the little rumblings of something going down in the city because, the police sirens, they're talking about it on the radio. They think it's like this new street drug that's got people going crazy. So, all that type of stuff you didn't get in the game. When Joel gets home from work, that's actually where the original game starts. It's Sarah, chilling on the couch. Joel comes home and they begin talking about, him getting home from work. So in the show, he gets home from work and he forgot to get a cake. He forgot to get a cake and bring it home. So Sarah's like, are you serious? Like, you promised me you would get the cake. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'll get it tomorrow, I swear. And then she's like, you better get it or you're not getting your birthday gift. And so he's like, oh, wait, you got me a birthday gift? And she's like, oh, yeah. So she pulls out the watch, shows it to him. She's like, he's like, wait, hold up. How'd you get money to even get the watch fixed? And she's like, oh, I sell drugs. I sell hardcore drugs. And that's like a famous line from the game. And, that they repurposed for the TV show. And, so they're joking about, and then she also shows him that she borrowed a movie from the neighbors, and it was Curtis and Viper 2 or something Curtis Viper 2, which is like one of Joel's favorite movies that you also learn in Last of Us Part 2, the game, that is one of his favorite movies. So she borrowed that from the neighbors. He's all excited. They're ready to watch the movie. He's all excited. He's like, oh, this is the one with the deleted scenes. Like, he's stoked about, watching the movie with Sarah. And he's like, yeah, you better stay up. So she ends up falling asleep nonetheless. And, Joel gets a call from Tommy. Now, Sarah's asleep. Joel gets a call from Tommy. Tommy's like, yo, I'm okay, but I'm in jail. He's like, I'm okay, but I'm in jail. So Tommy, I guess he gets locked up. He talked about how he was in like a bar fight. And so the bar fight, he said some dude was talking smack. He knocked him out. They arrested him. And so he's calling Joel to like bail him out and stuff like that. So you're already seeing that like Tommy's like that little brother that is going to be like getting into stuff. Or maybe he's always been that type of little brother that gets into stuff and then Joel has to like bail him out. So, Tommy's locked up. So Joel has to go bail him out. He puts Sarah to bed and then heads out. They showed the clock. It's like 11 o'clock at this time that Joel's going to bail Tommy out. They skip to the clock at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And Sarah gets woken up by loud helicopters, a whole bunch of commotion going on in the streets that she can hear outside. And so she's like, what the hell is going on? So she gets up, she's walking around looking for Joel, goes downstairs, and then the dog from the neighbor's dog scares her because he's like jumps up on the window, and she like she gets startled. So she like falls back and goes out to go outside to the dog, and she's comforting the dog about like asking him what's going on, what's wrong, and she's like, where's why are you out here, like why aren't you in the house? And so she starts walking back to the house, the neighbor's house, with the dog, and the dog is not trying to go over there. Like the dog knows something is up, and he's not trying to go in the house. It got to the point where like she's pulling on the dog, and the dog is like gets off of his collar and just runs completely away. So now she's like, why you don't want to go home? So she goes into the house, and it's like pitch dark in there. Like she don't hear nothing. She's calling for the neighbors and not even getting the answer. So she wanders her way into the kitchen, where she like slips on some blood. So now there's blood on the floor. She slips on the blood. So she's looking down, and out the corner of her eye, she sees Papa Adler, the neighbor, in the corner, like crying out for help. And it looks like he's all bloodied, and he's calling out for help. So she's timid, but she walks over there, and he's like pointing like almost towards something that's on the floor. And so the camera pans, and she also looks, and you see Grandma Adler taking a nice sized chunk out of Mama Adler, feasting. I'm talking about feasting on her neck, on the floor. And so like the grandma, like her head like raises up, and you see like almost like these little tentacles like out of her mouth. And I guess those are the tendrils. So that's like the fungus, trying to transfer itself into another host, as far as they explain and stuff like that. So it looks like this is like the start of when we get to see the infected, how they transfer, and the causes of being infected, and how it has on the body. So the grandmother, she now has like blood all on her face. So Sarah, she just gets up and starts like running out the house, and then the grandmother starts chasing her out the house like she's hauling ass. These ain't your typical zombies where they just get up and their arms is out and they slow motion moving. No, the grandmother is hauling ass after Sarah, even to the point where she like tripped and fell as she's on her way outside. So as Sarah gets outside, Joel and Tommy pop back up in the car. So Tommy's got his gun. Joel has like this big ass wrench, and he's like, get in the car, shut the door, lock the door, to Sarah. And so then the grandmother that was chasing Sarah starts coming after Joel and Tommy. And Tommy's like, yo, what are we doing? Like, we're taking her out or what? And so she gets real close, and Joel just ends up cracking her with the wrench, killing her, one hit, just cracked her with the wrench, knocked her out. And now Sarah is like mortified, because these are people like, she probably known since she was a baby, and people she grew up with. She just watched one of them eating the other one bleeding out on the floor, and the other one now dead because Joel had to crack her with the wrench in order for her to to protect themselves. And so she's like terrified about all of this. A couple neighbors come out their house. Joel is telling them to get in the house. They realize they gotta bounce, so they hop in the car. They start heading towards the freeway, the highway, or whatever, rolling over the Adlers, I should say, as they go, because the Adlers, of course, they were infected by the grandmother, and so they also start coming out the house looking for something to snack on. And Joel and Tommy and them end up like hitting them on their way out, and the neighbors are like checking on them, like they don't even know, like, you going to check on them, you gonna be next. You got to get out of here. He told you to stay in the house. Mind your business. But they want to be nosy. So now they're hitting the highway, trying to leave town. Sarah's in shock. She's wondering like, what's going on with everybody? Are they sick? She was wondering if they were sick themselves, because she's just trying to figure out what's going on. So they try to leave town. Of course, everybody has the same idea, trying to take the highway, the next, the highway to skip town. So it's backed up with traffic. So they try to go like an alternate route. The alternate route is blocked off by the army. They're not trying to let nobody out of town at this point. Joel's like, forget it. We'll just take this other route that I know going south. We got to cut through the town and we should be able to get out of there. So they driving through the town, mayhem in the streets, infected, eating other people running crazy. You start to see like helicopters and planes flying overhead, but they flying really low. So like, I don't know if they just like are taking off or something is going on those planes where they're really low. So they, mayhem in the streets. And they dodge actually a car almost T-boning them. And I thought this was cool because in the actual game, that car actually hits them. But in this show, they kind of threw us for a loop, and they actually don't get even hit by the car. They dodge the car, and now they're going. So they're trying to do some maneuvering through the people to get through. They had to end up like backing up, and out the back window, Sarah's looking in the sky, and it's a whole airplane crash landing towards the town that they're in. A whole big airplane crash landed towards the town that they're in. So the airplane is coming down. They're trying to, go forward now to get out the way of the airplane. Airplane crashes. Debris from the airplane flying everywhere hits the car, causing them to flip over. It goes black. When they come back from it going black, the car's messed up. Joel and Sarah are in the car still, trying to get their way out. Joel's helping Sarah. She has injured her ankle. In the game, she actually injures her leg, but same difference. Injures her ankle. She can't walk, so now Joel has to carry her to safety. They end up getting split from Tommy due to the car that they were in getting rammed and like going up into a blaze. So they get split from Tommy. So now Tommy's like, get her, to the, I believe it was the river. They're gonna meet there. That way they can, figure a way out. So, Joel's carrying Sarah, and it's a group of infected just chilling, feasting on like dead bodies. And so now Joel, he was already loud, so they heard him. One of them at least heard him. He pops his head up, he sees them, and he starts chasing after him. And that's what I brought it up before, but that's what's different. And what I love is that like these infected, they ain't the slow walking infected. These infected will chase after you. And he has his daughter in his hands, running from the infected. And so the infected is going berserk, crashing in the doors, crashing in the walls, just trying to get after him, jumping over countertop. Like, it was fire. Like, that scene right there was fire. I thought they nailed that scene. So Joel's like running through this diner kitchen, trying to get outside so that he can, keep it, getting his way towards safety. And so they get outside, and the infected, which is a runner. This is the runner type of infected. So the infected have 4 stages. It's the first stage when you're just like, kind of slow a little bit, but you look more like a normal human still, but you just might have like the lethargic look to your face, and you might, in this show, you might have like the tendrils coming out your mouth to feast on, flesh. And the second stage is the runners, where they're faster now. So now the fungus is starting to take over more, and they got a goal. They got a mission now. They going after any and everything that is breathing and moving. And so the runner is chasing after him from behind, and then the runner gets shot from an off-screen character. They pan over. It's the Fedra, I believe it's a Fedra soldier that shoots the runner that's chasing after him. So Joel breathe a sigh of relief. He's like, oh, thank you. I got my daughter here. She's hurt. And then the agent is like, what's wrong with her? He's like, oh no, just her ankle. She's fine. It's just her ankle is messed up. We need help. And so the agent, the Fedra soldier, gets on his phone, his radio, and he's like talking to his higher up. And he's like, I got a guy, he's got his daughter, I'm saying, pretty much looking for help. And he gets orders from whoever's on that line. So he's like, yes, sir. And he just keeps saying it over, like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then Joel was like, we just need help. And the guy starts walking towards them with the gun. And lo and behold, when he started letting that thing ring, and he shot at Joel and Sarah to kill them. That was pretty much the orders that he got from his higher up. Even though they weren't infected, it seems like the federal wasn't taking any chances on letting these people live, letting these people escape out of town, and they was just getting rid of them as many as possible as they could. And so he shot at them. Joel and Sarah end up like rolling down this hill. They kind of get separated. The soldier walks up on Joel and is about to take him out, and then out of nowhere the soldier just gets shot in the head, and that of course is Tommy, who comes, saves the day. He might have been the brother that messed up a lot, but he came and saved the day this time, protecting Joel from getting killed. And so he shoots the soldier, walks up to Joel, and then they reveal that Sarah actually got hit, and that when the federal soldier shot at them. And so we get to the moment, one of the saddest moments in the game, where now Joel is trying to help Sarah as she's bleeding out, crying, and it's a tough watch. Like, I thought they did a great job of reenacting this moment, because I know like how hard moments like this can be. I remember like listening to the game documentary and them talk about like how much energy doing this moment took out of them, because they had to do it like over and over and over to get it right when they were doing this for the game. And for these characters, I believe I heard that for the show they didn't even rehearse. Like, they wanted everything to be like raw when it was happening on camera. And so I thought they did a good job with reenacting this moment. It felt real. And back then when I first played the game, that was the moment where I felt like, yo, this is where y'all taking it, Naughty Dog. So they was taking it there in this show. And they Sarah eventually dies, and then fade to black. 20 years later, the show picks back up. So now they were in 2003, we're in 2023, basically this year that the game picks up back up in, and we're in Boston. And you see like this little boy walking around. He looks a little sick, but he looks lost. He looks a little sick, and he looks hungry. Like, he's just trying to find somewhere to go to get to safety, maybe get some food. And the federal soldiers, they notice him roaming around, so they pick him up. They bring him back to the facility that they're in, and they're like trying to talk to him, get his name, figure out how he's feeling. And he's not really talking. He's doing a little bit of talking, but then they're testing him, because at this point you got to get tested for if you're probably like showing signs of being infected. It's 20 years later now, so there's probably like a system in place. And he tests positive for the infection, and so ultimately you already know what that means. They gonna cancel his ass, get rid of him. But she like promises him that he's safe, and trying to comfort him, and like they give him a needle, and it looks like probably maybe that needle is gonna like kill him over time, like maybe slowly, nothing painful, but that was ultimately his fate. And then there's people working, and it looks like they're like dumping dead bodies into the fire. So it seems like that's how they're getting rid of dead bodies, because I'm sure there's a bunch of them just piling up throughout these areas that they're dumping bodies into fires to burn them. That's probably like the best way to do it, so that you don't have these bodies just piling up all over, and you got to clean up the city and stuff like that. So we noticed that it's actually Joel as one of the workers who is doing the job of dumping the bodies into the fire. So Joel is here in Boston now. It's 20 years later. You can see the grayness in his hair and his beard. Like, he's gotten older. And I didn't mention, but he was 36 on his birthday back in 2003. So 20 years later, he's now 56 years old in this show. And so they get like this truck that pulls up where they're working at, and it looks like it's a bunch of more bodies for them to dump into the fire. And it ends up being the little boy as one of the bodies that we get introduced to at the beginning of the 20-year 20-year time skip. And the one lady's like, nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. And Joel just picks him right up, throws him in the fire, and like it's nothing. like it's nothing. Like, that right there showed me like Joel is like, he's like not only desensitized to the whole situation that he's in, but he a cold motherfucker now. Like he don't have like no feelings for nothing. He's probably been killing and murdering over the past 20 years, and he's just numb to it at this point. Just numb to it. Just, you can't do it, give them to me. It's a job, I gotta do my job. So the workday is over at this point. They're collecting their payment, and they get like these ration cards. And Joel also picks up like a job for the next day. So then Joel is like roaming around, walking around. You see like these civilians being hung, and it looks like this is like their punishment for some of the crimes that they committed. And if you listen clearly, you hear that they're getting hung for unauthorized exit out of the quarantine zone, and unauthorized entry of the quarantine zone. So they even in today's society, they have like a court system and also punishment for things that you do. It's a little bit more harsh, like they killing people for coming in and leaving. But I guess, for them, it's like you could have either harmed us by leaving or coming in. So that's going to be your punishment. Like you could have caused us to have an outbreak of infection by coming and leaving, and now you are going to pay that same price that you could have caused us. So Joel then he's talking with a federal soldier, and he's like dealing him some drugs. So Joel got his hands on some drugs, hydros, and the federal soldier is trading him some ration cards, which is their money, and cigarettes for the drugs that he got in. So Joel, even though he's still working, he's making some money on the side by dealing these drugs in the streets. Get it by any means. And also, in addition to that, Joel is trying to gather up a truck. He's trying to get a truck. Seems like, at this point, he's trying to travel somewhere. And so that was part of the deal for getting the federal soldier some drugs, is that the federal soldier will hook him up with a way to get a truck. But it wouldn't have a battery, so he had to figure out a way to get a battery. Next scene, we get introduced to Tess. Now, Tess is also another major character in the show, female, badass character. And you get introduced to her pretty much being held up by these three dudes. She looks like she's gotten beat up, bruises and bumps and swollenness all over her face. And she's talking with this guy, and this guy's name is Robert. So we all know Robert from the game. They're pretty much trying to get a battery for the car, because as I just mentioned, Joel got a car, trying to travel somewhere from the federal soldier. They need a battery. So it seems like Tess is on her end working, trying to get a battery. And so this Robert guy ends up ripping her off. He takes her money and tells her he's going to give her a battery. They end up meeting up, and he don't got the battery. He ends up selling the battery to somebody else, and she paid for it. She paid for it, and he don't even got the battery. And so they're talking, and she's like, what, just let me go. I'll explain to Joel all of this, like what happened to my face, because it seems like Robert is terrified of Joel. And so she's like, I'll explain it to him. We just let bygones be bygones. We go our separate ways. Out of nowhere, huge explosion. Ends up killing some of Robert's men, and also Robert ends up escaping off, nowhere to be found. So Tess gets up, she's walking outside, and she notices that the federal soldiers are actually at war, and they're at war with the group called the Fireflies, which is like a terrorist rebellion group that is going up against the government. And they have been going up against the government for a long time, because the government has, their rules, and they set things in place on how things need to be done. And this group called the Fireflies is rebelling against them. They're known as terrorists. Fireflies don't see themselves as terrorists. They see themselves more as like liberators and stuff like that. So, they're at war, shooting at each other, and Tess is just like caught in the middle of it. And she sees that the federal soldiers are like closing in. And so she's like, just trying not to get shot. So she kind of like gives herself up. They arrest her. So they arrest her, and then we get introduced to Ellie. I've been saying Ellie's name for getting her mixed up with Sarah for the longest, but now Ellie is finally introduced in the show. And so Ellie's chained to a wall, and they're like running a test on her to see if she's still coherent. And so they're making her count. And we all know Ellie from the games to be like this badass character who who don't take shit from nobody. So while she's counting, she gets all the way up to like 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 is like she used "f you," like "fuck you" to the people that was doing like running the test on her, and so that just a quick glimpse on Ellie. Now we back at Joel, and he goes to a radio communicator building, and it seems like a whole bunch of people are lined up, and it looks like these people like are writing on pieces of paper to have their message sent to another radio tower, to maybe like a family member or a loved one that they might have gotten separated from, or just like checking in on to see how they're doing. So that seems to be the line of communication these days. And so Joel kind of like cuts the line. He gives the radio guy some cigarettes, so that's probably a little side payment for him cutting the line. And also we learn that Joel hasn't heard from Tommy in 3 weeks. So he hasn't heard from Tommy in 3 weeks. Tommy's out somewhere in Wyoming. Usually they said he gets back to him in about a day. When Joel like sends out for a message, Tommy gets back for him for a day. And so the fact that he hasn't heard from him in 3 weeks, Joel, is worried. And that seems to be the reasoning behind him trying to get a car and a car battery so that he can go out there and look for Tommy. So Tommy, with Tommy being unknown, his location, Joel asked the radio communicator where the tower was that communicates the message that usually gets to Tommy. So he points it to the map. Joel grabs the map and he heads back to his apartment to pretty much plan out a route to go and grab Tommy. And I thought this part was dope as hell because like Joel is like sitting at the table, he's like drinking, but the music that was playing was the Factions menu music. And by Factions, I mean the multiplayer for the Last of Us game. And I thought that was dope as hell because that's like iconic to me, and I noticed it right away. I was like, oh, that's fire. Like they showing some love to Factions. So I appreciated that for them putting that music in that part of the game. In that part of the show from that part of the game. So Joel ends up falling asleep after drinking. He's taking drugs too. Looks like he was taking some of the hydros as well. So that's probably a way for him to sleep these days after all he's been through, as well as what he's worried about now and Tommy. And so Tess ends up coming home, and she gets in bed with Joel, and they kind of like spooning. Like they spooning, and it kind of confirms that they're a little bit more intimate in this show compared to the game. Joel, Tess being intimate was always like a question that fans had about the game, but in this show they're pretty much confirming that they do have an intimate relationship. It's not just business. They're not just partners on that end. So Joel finds out that Tess got beat up by Robert's men, and Tess tells him that they gotta go and get that battery because Robert is like selling it to other people, promising it to other people, so they either got to get it back, get their money back, either way. So Joel and Tess go on a hunt for Robert. So now they're asking around different people, exchanging money or ration cards for information about the whereabouts of Robert. They figure out where he is. In this part, they also venture like down into like a tunnel. And within that tunnel, you notice that they come across like a infected stuck to a wall. Now, this is where like in the game where you kind of like get introduced to like spores, because spores usually come about from infected that have been in an area for a long time, like an enclosed area for a long time, and they are producing spores at this point. And so if you breathe in the spore fumes that they're producing, you can become infected, and usually they would have had to have worn a mask. But since this show doesn't have spores, they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about that. So they just see the infected stuck to the wall, and they're looking at it like, what the hell happened here? Like, how did that happen? And stuff like that. So the fact that they got rid of spores, maybe they switched up how the scenes were shot. But if that was all that they were gonna, the only scene that they were gonna have, like that would have warranted spores, I don't see why they had to get rid of it. I understand like the believable aspect of spores, like maybe it's not as believable as tendrils would be, but I don't think that's like a reason to switch it up. Like I don't think spores are that unbelievable. Tendrils seem to be explained well, but I don't think spores are that unbelievable. Or it doesn't seem like they would have had to have a mask on for a long period of time for them to switch it up like that. Now Marlene is introduced. She is the leader of the Fireflies. And, so she's coming into the Firefly facility, and, some of them are like questioning her about what the plan is, like what's going on, the direction, the orders being given. And Marlene is telling them, like, listen, we've been at this war with the Fedra, the government, for a long time, 20 years or whatever, and we ain't done nothing. We ain't put a dent in nothing, and we got a new plan at this point. So she's asking, one of the Firefly soldiers is asking Marlene, like, what's up with the girl being in the room chained up, like, and Marlene's like, that girl is why we're leaving. Actually, we're leaving this quarantine zone tonight. That girl is the reason. And so she hands her a note about the little girl, Ellie, and she, like, don't tell nobody about that. And they never like reveal what's on the note. So she just like, keep it a secret. But that's the reason why we got to get out of here. And right now what we're doing is trying to cause these explosions around the city to cause a distraction so that they're not focused in on this area, which is where we're going to be leaving from. And now they're like going back and forth between Joel and Tess and then Marlene, who eventually meets up with Ellie. So she gives Ellie back her bag, which Ellie then takes out her knife that was in the bag. And Marlene, just talking to Ellie, explaining to her, like, she was the reason that Ellie was even in a federal school, because she wanted to keep Ellie protected. And Ellie's like, what the hell are you, like my mother? Like, she's like, no, I'm not your mother. Clearly, I'm black. I'm saying you're white, but I'm not your mother. But, she's just like, you have a greater purpose. And, she's telling her, like, you have a greater purpose at this point. So we're just trying to keep you safe. And we got to get out of here, like, tonight. We got to leave the quarantine zone. We got to go. So, Ellie's like, getting all sad and, getting all like, I don't want to be here chained up. I just want to go home. But Marlene's like, no, you have a greater purpose. Like, just hold on. Like, I'll explain it to you, but we got to go tonight. Joel and Tess, they find Robert. So they find the location that Robert is in, and he ends up being dead. And Robert is dead, and then they find their battery right next to him, and that's shot too. So they ain't got no Robert, they ain't got no battery. At this point, Joel and Tess in the game, they end up getting into like the firefight with Robert's men. And they end up running down on Robert, and Tess has like a badass moment in the game, confronting Robert and ultimately even taking him out. So I thought like that would have been a cool moment for them to show for the character of Tess. But then Joel, he hears like a voice. They hear like a voice around the corner in that same building. So they go around the corner. It's Marlene. She ends up being shot, and it looks like she had gotten into a shootout with Robert, because he was the person that provided her with. He was the other person that got promised the battery, and I guess it went to hell, and she ends up getting shot in the shootout. But all of Robert's men look dead. Robert is dead, but Marlene is hurt. Now Marlene knows Joel and Tess. Like, they have a relationship, probably just a business relationship, but they know each other. And so when Joel is walking up on Marlene, Ellie hops out the room and tries to stab Joel, and he slams her against the wall, and her knife goes flying. She's on the floor. So now Joel begins talking with Marlene, and Marlene and the other lady who was questioning Marlene before, her name is Kim. She was there as well. You find out that Joel and Tommy, the reason Joel blames Marlene for the relationship between Tommy and him being not as strong as it used to be. And so, he's saying yo, you turned my brother against me, and things like that. So that already shows you that their relationship is a little sour. But Marlene is explaining to them, listen, I understand you didn't get your battery. I understand you needed that for the car to go get Tommy, but I got something even more important right now. And if you do this for me, I'll get you a car, supplies, whatever you need. I just need you to do this for me, because clearly I'm hurt. I can't do it. So Marlene is like, I need you to take Ellie to a Firefly group at the State House. Everybody's like, hell no. I'm not doing that. Joel's like, I ain't doing that. Tess like, no. Ellie's like, I'm not going with them. But Marlene is like, yes, you are. We got to get you out of here. And Joel and Tess began talking because that's a good opportunity for them to get this truck and the supplies that they need in order to go get Tommy. If they do this, they don't typically smuggle humans. If anything, they're smuggling like supplies and stuff like that. But he's like, this is a great opportunity. So they agreed to do it. They head back to the apartment where Joel and Tess were, and they're just like, killing time till it gets dark so they can head out. And then you start to see Joel and Ellie like build a relationship. So it becomes dark, and Joel, Tess, and Ellie head out of the quarantine zone. They're sneaking out. They run into the same federal soldier that Joel ends up selling the drugs to. So he's out on patrol, and they run into him. And so the federal soldier is like, get on your knees, turn around. You got to do this by the book. And so he starts to test each one of them, making sure they're not infected. And so they're trying to like plead with him, like, listen, whatever money we get from this, we'll cut you in. We'll give you 3/4 of it. He's like, 3/4? Nah. Joel's like, we'll give you all of the money and half off on any future drugs. He's like, half off? Nah. As he's like testing them. So Joel tests, she's clear. She tests negative. Joel tests negative. And then he goes to test Ellie, and she's looking scared and worried. And so he goes to test her, and she pulls out her knife and stabs him in the leg. And so he like flips out, drops the testing gun, picks up his gun. Joel is like standing in front of Ellie. He's like, all right, everybody, let's just calm down. Let's talk this out. Let's figure this out. And the federal soldier's like, move out the way, because he's trying to like kill Ellie for stabbing him. He's like, move out the way. And then Joel has like this flashback of the federal soldier when him and Sarah got shot. And so he just has this flashback, and then immediately goes into rage, jumps on the federal soldier and just starts punching him out to death. And Ellie's all in the back, like creeping, but also like smiling and approving of this. And it's like, she likes this. Like, she likes the violence. She likes the roughness of the Joel character and seeing him go crazy, versus like a Sarah who was scared when she saw Joel kill somebody. So you already see like the big difference between how the world was in 2003 versus how it is now in 2023, and the kids growing up within the in this world of infected, and they probably had to do things that has them a little bit hardened to this world. So Joel punches him to death, and then off to the side you see Tess pick up the scanner gun, the testing gun, and it's red, meaning Ellie tested positive for infection. And so Tess is like, what the hell is this? And Ellie is like, I'm not sick, like I'm not infected. Then she pulls up her arm sleeve and shows that she has like a mark on her arm, like a bite mark that has been there. She's like, it's been there for 3 weeks. Like, I haven't gotten sick, I haven't turned yet. It's been there for 3 weeks. And Tess is like, what the hell is going on? And then like Joel is kind of like still in the daze, but he's hearing it at the same time, but he's also like kind of like zoned out. And they all come to agreement, like, listen, whatever the hell this is, we can't argue or talk about this here. We gotta go, because there's gonna be federal agents on our ass. And so they walk off into the war-torn city, and then you hear like a loud clicker scream, and then the episode ends. Overall, it was good. I really liked, most of the performances from the characters in the show. Bella Ramsey as Ellie, the jury is still out for me on that. I think, she had some moments where she sounded just like Ellie and gave off the correct mannerisms, but then there was moments where I was like, they could have probably did a second take on that. Marlene is played by the same character that played her in the game, so she was perfect, of course. Tess' character was great. I had my issues with just them like rushing through some key moments that I thought would have been good for character development, especially even at the end where you find out that Ellie tests positive for infection, and like she's talking to Tess. Like, they even like, I felt rushed through that. Like, I felt like they could have, like, because when Joel was like in a daze, you could only like hear them talking about it a little bit. It wasn't even like it was loud. I thought it should have been like really prominent. I thought Joel should have been prominent in that moment when they're talking about her being infected, because that's important. They added so much to these characters, like the parts that weren't in the game, while also staying true to the game source material. And I think they nailed it. I do think they nailed it with this. And I'm super excited to continue to cover the show for episode 2, which will be next week. But y'all let me know down in the comment section what y'all think about this first episode of The Last of Us, and I'll catch y'all in my next video. Peace.